It's 3 p.m. on Monday, April 21st here in Korea. Live from Seoul, I'm Moon Gon-young. It's been 126 hours or more than 5 days since a nearly 7,000-ton Sewol-ho ferry sank into waters with more than 470 people on board. 64 have been confirmed dead so far. Nearly 240 remain unaccounted for. Search and rescue operations have continued for the last 5 days, particularly in high gear overnight, with little results as no survivors have been found since. However, down in Jindo, search and rescue operations now in their 6th day continue for the nearly 240 people still missing from the Sewol-ho ferry disaster. But the death toll continues to rise while no survivors have been found. Let's go live to our Hwang Sung-hee at the Paengmok-hang Harbor, just 20 kilometers from the accident site. Sung-hee, what is the latest coming in from there?
Kanyang, the rescue teams are focusing their search on the 3rd and 4th floor of the vessel. Now, the 3rd floor is where the vessel's cafeteria is located, and the 4th floor is where the cabins are. And these are where the high school students, most of them, are believed to have been at the time of the accident. More than 200 people still remain missing inside the capsized ferry, and nearly 90% of them are believed to be from the Danwon High School in Ansan. The rescue team has also deployed a remotely controlled vehicle, or ROV, to search inside the sunken ferry. Technical experts from the U.S. and the Netherlands are at the accident site to lend support to the ongoing rescue operations. Kanyang?
So it's a race against time for the rescue teams as they seek survivors, but the death toll continues to rise.
That's right, Kanyang. Unfortunately, the death toll has risen again to 64 after 6 more bodies were retrieved earlier today. Some of these bodies have been identified. Others still need to undergo DNA testing, but they are believed to be female high school students. The bodies were found on the 4th floor of the vessel, which, like I said earlier, was where the cabins of the students were. The number of survivors, unfortunately, still remains unchanged at 174. But the weather will work in our favor today with favorable clear skies and calm tidal waves at 2-meter levels. 5 full days have passed since the ferry capsized, but the families of the missing are clinging on to hope. This was Hwang Sung-hee reporting from the Paengmok-hang Harbor.
Now, in the days that immediately followed the Sewol-ho ferry accident, search and rescue efforts were seriously hindered by fast-moving tidal currents. But thankfully, conditions are expected to improve this week, which should help divers navigate through treacherous waters near the sunken vessel. Our Park Ji-won has this report.
Calm waves and clear skies. Wind speeds and wave heights were cut in half on Monday compared to the previous day as a high-pressure front moved into the area. Weather conditions have finally turned favorable for search and rescue crews in waters off Jindo Island, and the clear weather is forecast to continue through this Friday. Strong tidal currents, which significantly hampered the rescue operations last week, have also slowed.
Last week was the time when the current speeds were the fastest, and from the 19th it has been slowing down. Starting this Tuesday, the speeds will be at their slowest.
Last week, the maximum speed of the currents in the area were 2.8 meters per second, or over 10 kilometers per hour. That's expected to drop as low as about 1 meter per second, especially from this Tuesday to Thursday. When tidal currents slow, underwater visibility improves with less floating particles in the sea. That's why experts believe this week will be a turning point in search operations inside the sunken Sewol-ho ferry. Park Ji-won, ARIRANG News.
Now, a recording of the ferry's radio distress call released Sunday shows there was confusion and indecision by the crew. The families of the victims and the missing are demanding to know why and how the crew was able to escape while the passengers were ordered to stay put in their cabins. ARIRANG's Lee Ji-yeon has the details.
Even if you speak Korean, it's difficult to make out what the two sides are saying. But what is evident is that it sounds like a dire situation. The joint investigation team composed of the police and the prosecution released the transcript on Sunday. The Sewol-ho ferry and the Chindo vessel traffic service, the Marine Traffic Control Center, made contact 11 times and communicated for 31 minutes. The control center first contacted the sinking ferry at 9:06 a.m. Wednesday. At 9:12 a.m., the ferry was already severely tilted. The crew member who was talking to the control center already knew that the people on board were unable to move. The control center told the ferry that the captain needs to decide whether to order passengers to abandon the vessel. That was around 9:25 a.m. But the ferry responded saying it was unable to make announcements because its speaker system was down. And the last time the two made contact was at 9:37 a.m. when the ferry told the control tower that only the people who were able to escape to the left side of the ferry were able to leave the vessel. Whether the captain was in the steering room when the communications were being made is still unknown. Captain Lee Jun-seok is arrested and formally charged for escaping the ship before the passengers. Further investigation will determine whether the captain in fact did neglect his duties by not promptly notifying the passengers about the situation during that 30-minute time frame. Lee Ji-yeon, ARIRANG News.
Meanwhile, President Park Geun-hye has vowed to hold those involved in the ferry sinking strictly responsible, pointing an accusing finger at the crew's irrational and irresponsible actions when the Sewol-ho ferry got into trouble. For more on that, let's go live to our Na Hyung-kyung at the News Center. Hyung-kyung, what are we having? What's the latest?
Well, Kanyang, the word she used was murderous when referring to the Sewol-ho ferry's captain and crew abandoning the ship before the passengers. President Park also said she felt a deep distrust of the government and anger from the affected family members because of the way government officials handled the case in the beginning.
헌신적으로 근무하는 공무원들까지 불신하게 만드는 자리 보존을 위해 눈치만 보는 공무원들은 이 정부에서는 반드시 퇴출시킬 것입니다. 선장과 일부 승무원들의 행위는 상식적으로 도저히 납득할 수 없고 용납될 수 없는 살인과도 같은 행태였습니다.
Those remarks were made at a meeting of senior secretaries at the presidential office of Cheongwade this Monday morning. The president ordered the joint investigation team composed of the police and the prosecution to thoroughly clarify any suspicions the public might have regarding this tragic accident.
Now, Hyung-kyung, speaking of suspicions, it's not just the family members who want to know why and how the crew members escaped from the ferry when they really knew some of the passengers were trapped inside the cabins.
Yes, Kanyang, currently two separate investigations are ongoing to solve some of the mysteries surrounding the case. One is being conducted jointly by prosecutors and police officers, as I mentioned. The other is handled solely by the prosecution. A special probe launched under Prosecutor General Kim Jin-tae's direct order on Sunday. Now, the joint investigation team earlier in the day received arrest warrants for 4 additional crew members. This comes after 3 crew members, including the captain, were arrested over the weekend. And we're getting reports that the 20-year-old Sewol-ho ferry underwent months of renovation to extend its sailing life for more than 7 years. Some 20 people related to the renovation have been summoned for questioning as well. The ferry operator Cheonghaejin Marine Company is also under investigation. The prosecutorial special investigative team has also imposed travel bans on the operator's president, Kim Han-sik, as well as Yoo Byung-eun, the former chairman of the operator's parent firm, and his 2 sons, who are the biggest shareholders of the company. In the meantime, we are also just getting reports that one of the engineers of the ferry that went through questioning sessions by investigators attempted to hang himself. His colleagues found him just before he could go through with it. The person has been transferred to a nearby hospital and is reportedly in stable condition.
Now, Hyung-kyung, on to another story. The government earlier on declared Ansan in Gyeonggi-do province near the capital Seoul, which is where this Danwon High School is located. And Jindogun County in Jeollanam Province, where this disaster happened, as special disaster zones. And the measure was passed Sunday. What does this mean?
Well, Kanyang, it was passed around 6:40 p.m. Korea time when those two areas officially became special disaster zones. And that means that the two areas will quickly receive state funds for the search and rescue operation. Also, local taxes, including acquisition tax, will be waived. Other general taxes will either be reduced or the payment deadline will be postponed for up to 9 months. And of course, financial assistance will be given to the families of the victims as well as to those who are still waiting for their loved ones to safely return.
All right, Hyung-kyung, thank you for that update. That was our Na Hyung-kyung live from the News Center on the government measures taken for the victims, survivors, as well as the captain and crew of the Sewol-ho ferry. Now, authorities are also warning the public of a text messaging scam that's taking advantage of this horrible tragedy still unfolding in the southwestern coast of this country. The Science Ministry says that they have so far identified 7 kinds of so-called smishing scams using text messages that lure people into phishing sites that extract personal data. Now, they are warning people not to click on any links sent to their mobile phones and to immediately delete these messages since they could be embedded with malicious codes. The government and police also say they will hunt down those who post false information on the internet regarding the ferry and promise to strictly punish them. Now, with many more clues emerging about what might have caused this Sewol-ho ferry to sink, the puzzle is slowly coming together. Our Kim Min-ji takes a look on the 3 knock-on factors that experts suspect caused this ferry to capsize.
Around 8:30 a.m. on Wednesday, April 16th, the Sewol-ho ferry passed through treacherous waters which are notorious here in Korea for their strong currents. 18 minutes later, the ferry veers suddenly, which is being pointed to as the first factor in the sinking. The stern is believed to have turned 80 degrees to the right.
What it means by the vessel supposedly making a P-turn is that the helm was turned to the right, then back again. But the boat didn't come back to its original position. Operations momentarily froze, which results in the ferry making a complete turn.
Due to centrifugal force, the vessel tilts to the left. Now this is when the second factor may have come in. Grips holding down on the ferry's freight may have come loose, causing containers and vehicles in the cargo compartment to lift sharply to one side. The weight concentrated on just one side of the ferry causes it to tilt even further. If the vessel had enough dynamic stability, the vessel could have bounced back to the other side and maintained balance. However, due to renovations to increase the vessel's capacity, the center of gravity on the ship had been raised from its original design.
Due to the expansion of the ship, the upper structure has been changed, making the center of gravity much higher. If the center of gravity and buoyancy are far apart, the dynamic stability decreases.
Experts say the reduced dynamic stability caused the vessel to completely submerge because it wasn't able to recover from the initial tilt. They add that the Sewol-ho ferry may not have had enough ballast water, which maintains the balance of the vessel in order to carry more cargo. As all 3 factors could have been prevented, experts say the sinking will likely be attributed to human error. Kim Min-ji, ARIRANG News.
어서 돌아와 보고 싶어. 사랑해, 얘들아.
Now, going back to the victims of this disaster, once bodies are recovered, or better yet, if survivors are found, they will be brought to the Paengmok-hang Hospital, located in Korea's southern Jeollanam province, where hospital staff have been working around the clock. ARIRANG News Kim Hyun-bin is standing by there. Hyun-bin.
Hey, Ganyang, no bodies or survivors have arrived since I've been here early in the morning. And this hospital is one of the 5 that are that processes bodies for identification, as well as collecting DNA samples. There are currently 24 bodies at these hospitals, 2 of which are located here in Mokpo. Medical helicopters is on standby, along with 2 medics, so that the hospital can efficiently transfer rescue survivors for the deceased. Paengmok-hang Hospital officials say 50 beds have been reserved for any possible survivors that are found, and 20 doctors and nurses are on standby 24/7. Since rescue operations have entered a 6th day, hopes to find survivors are slowly dimming, and officials are expecting more bodies to be transferred here throughout the day. Back to you, Konyang.
Hyunbin, as for the survivors rescued on the first day of the accident, they are being treated there. I heard that they're experiencing severe depression and anxiety, and the hospital has forbidden anyone from visiting them except for family members. How are they doing?
Not well. Doctors say all the survivors are suffering from post-traumatic stress, and roughly half of them are under medication. This is a clear indication of the severity of their conditions. Family members are also suffering from shock. One of the fathers of a missing student suffered a stroke, and some of the survivors are suffering from depression and even amnesia. This has been Kim Hyun-bin reporting live at Paengmok-hang Hospital, and I'll be bringing you more updates throughout the day. Back to you, Kanyang.
All right, bodies that are first transferred to Paengmok-hang Hospital are identified and then released to their families in Ansan. Let's connect live to our Connie Kim, who is standing by at the Korea University Ansan Hospital, where many of the fallen have arrived. What is the latest?
I'm currently standing by at the funeral hall of Korea University Ansan Hospital. Now, 6 of the deceased passengers that arrived from Paengmok-hang Hospital are currently still here. But starting from tomorrow, the joint memorial hall will be set up for the Danwon High School students that have passed. Will be set up at the Ansan Olympic Memorial Hall, which is about 10 minutes away from here. The bodies of 8 victims from this tragedy were released to their families today, and the city of Ansan continues to grieve for those it has lost so suddenly and so tragically.
Now, it has to be a traumatic time for everyone there. How about the students who survived this horrible ordeal? How are they holding up?
Right, there are currently 81 patients being treated here who are on board the sunken Sewol-ho ferry. And according to a press briefing held earlier this morning, the director of the hospital said that many of the patients who are suffering from mental stress and depression have improved since they first arrived. However, he said they would continue to monitor the students, that 1 out of 4 students are not sleeping well, and that about 20% of them will need psychological therapy. Now, after monitoring their status, the hospital will decide whether students can return to their daily lives within the next 3 days or so. A team composed of experts from the welfare and education ministries, the city of Ansan and Gyeonggi-do province will continue to look after them. This was Connie Kim reporting live from Korea University Ansan Hospital.
Right, all these victims are going to need our full support in what will be a very difficult road ahead of them. Now, even those who were not directly involved in the ferry incident could display symptoms of acute stress and anxiety, and that is what's happening to the people of Ansan, with really the whole city caught in complete shock as the second-year students of Ansan's Danwon High School, most of them missing, were on board the Sewol-ho ferry. Our Son Jung-in takes a look.
The entire city of Ansan is deep in sorrow. It has been a heart-wrenching time for everyone, even for those who were not directly affected by the disaster.
I see the same news every day. The media are all covering the story 24 hours a day now, and all of the mothers are crying watching it.
Many have complained of sleep disturbances at night and poor concentration during the day.
All of the residents here are depressed and saddened by the accident. We are also angry, thinking about why this happened in the first place.
The entire city is prone to post-traumatic stress disorder, which often occurs after a person has gone through an overwhelming life experience such as this. Back in 2001, after a terrorist attack in New York on 9/11, some 532,000 people were said to have been suffering from post-traumatic stress disorder, which made it hard for them to go through their lives while feeling a sense of normalcy for the next month or more. Even an indirect experience through TV or the internet can have a similar impact and produce stress. It's not only the survivors and the families of the missing who are at risk for PTSD, it's also witnesses and rescue operators. But it's the students and teachers from Danwon High School who are assumed to be suffering the most.
They can suffer from insomnia, nightmares, and flashbacks of past traumatic events. In extreme cases, they can have a hard time adapting to their social life, and in extreme cases, it can even lead to suicide.
Symptoms of PTSD can even show up years after an accident, so it is important to keep an eye on anyone with the condition. Experts recommend that people suffering from PTSD see a doctor if they have distressing dreams or a sensitive reaction to their surroundings. In addition, they advise parents and adults to talk with young children and teenagers about the news and limit their exposure. 손정인, ARIRANG News.
Now, the terrible loss of so many young souls has plunged the entire nation in deep sorrow and despair. And in respect to the victims and the still missing, TV stations here in Korea have canceled entertainment shows. Baseball and soccer matches are being played in silent stadiums, and the public really have massed for candlelit vigils. Seo Mi-sorang reports.
An accident that has left so many in disbelief. People all over the country had their eyes and ears fixed on news of the ferry disaster. It was to share the weight of the tragic accident and console families who were told by their children that they love them and that they shouldn't worry. Weekend prime time. Laughter has faded from what would normally be a fierce entertainment competition between the major television networks. With one of Korea's favorite sports, baseball season in full swing, all the loudspeakers and cheerleaders have disappeared from the stadiums. All that is left is the players who solemnly play without any cheering or events. People in Korea are sharing the pain as if it is a loss of their own, something the country has experienced in times of need.
I wanted to help in any way that I could, so I joined the candlelight vigil. I really hope that with the whole country coming together, that a miracle will happen.
During the 1997 Asian financial crisis, the Korean public donated their wedding rings and other gold items to help the country pull out of the economic crisis. And after one of the worst oil spills off the Taean coast in 2007, the area was able to recover its nature after an endless number of volunteers helped clean up the spill. Regardless of whether it is for good or bad times, the nation has been able to come together, setting individual needs aside and sharing a spirit of unity.
Korea has a strong collective sentiment. This is something that is just as important as collective intelligence. The entire country is sharing the sentiment that the students in the sinking are not simply children of other families, but actually part of an extended family. This is the force that brings the country together as one.
Seo Mi-sorang, ARIRANG News.
Now, the weather has been playing a big factor in the search and rescue operations down in the southwestern coast of Chindo at the accident site of this ferry. And we'd like to know what the weather is like there today. So for that, let's go over to our Michelle Park. Michelle, what is it looking like?
Well, the weather seems to be cooperating with the search and rescue efforts off the southwestern coast. Although it is still a bit windy, the tides are pretty calm. Now the sky is looking very clear with visibility of up to 14 kilometers, and that will extend even further throughout the day, with the highs reaching up to 16 degrees. Now, as for the tidal currents, they are slowing down in the areas, and they'll slow down even further at 6:40 p.m. Local time, giving the rescuers an easier time as they search the Sewol-ho vessel. Now, the current temperature of the water in Chindo is at 11.7 degrees Celsius, with the winds blowing at 7 meters per second, which is down from the morning, and the height of the wave is at 0.6 meters, which is half of what we had yesterday. Well, that's all I have at this moment. Back to you, Kanyang.
Thanks, Michelle, for that. And that's all for me at this hour. Our extensive coverage on the nation's search and rescue efforts for survivors in Korea's ferry disaster continues right here on ARIRANG. Join us again at the top of the next hour.